course, the dollar. So as I was speaking about on my weekly analysis, if you haven't checked it out, go and do that. Completely free to watch. So, of course, it's free to watch. It's on my YouTube channel. But essentially, what I was saying is that price has come back into an area of interest for buyers anyway. We did consolidate it quite a lot and had a pretty big move to the upside here. So this is coming back into bullish territory, and we have to be careful, especially if you're looking to continue that bearish momentum. So if you do have that bearish bias, now's the time to start maybe parking the brakes a little bit and being careful where you're shorting into. I still think there could be some really nice short opportunities for the dollar, but I do want to see a bit more of a pullback, coming back into this kind of area here where that momentum started from. Nice kind of doji there. On the weekly chart, strong move to the downside. If you can return back into that area, naturally, I do think that would be a nice place to short from. And again, doesn't necessarily have to be looking for a full swing for price to get back to the zone and expecting a full swing. Even if we get halfway, that could still be a very, very nice trade, especially if you see a similar move on like EURUSD or GBPUSD, for example. But yeah, the way I'm looking at the dollar right now is I'm still bearish in terms of momentum. We still do have consistent bearish structure. If I go to the daily chart, as you can see, lower lows and lower highs, momentum is still down. It's just that we've tapped into this area, which could, of course, start potentially a new trend. So I have to be prepared for that. But my main takeaway is that the market is still bearish, just being cautious that this level could turn things around. So in terms of shorting the dollar, I do want price to kind of pull away from that zone. So I'm not shorting closer to it because this is, of course, where the buyers will be looking to get involved. And that would mean that I'm kind of waiting for price to get back into this area where we had that brief consolidation, of course. And that's just when we had that massive move to the downside last week. So I kind of want price to revisit this area, 104, 104.2. And if you could do that nice and correctively, that could present some nice shorts there for the dollar. And again, we'll discuss targets closer to the setup, because I'm not too sure if I'll be looking to target all the way down to the swing low. Maybe I might be looking to trail some positions, but I'm being very cautious with my USD bearish buys just because of where we're getting to. But that's kind of what I'm looking at for the dollar. EURUSD, basically the same thing as well. I like this consolidation here as well, just before the market flew to the upside. Naturally, I would want to see the market get there, because we're in the same situation as with EURUSD as well. As we can see, if we look to the left, it's the weekly chart, by the way. Nice range there. What happened? We consolidated, strong break to the downside, and this started, of course, this move, which did end up taking out some structure as well. So it's a very strong position in the market for the sellers. Not only did it give us a pretty big move, it took out some pretty big lows whilst we're at it as well. So it's a very, very important area for euro dollar and for the dollar itself as well. So it could potentially start a trend in the opposite direction. But of course, we're still looking at momentum here. Strong push, bit of a retracement, another strong push to the upside. But of course, we did leave a bit of a wick to the upside as well. So we are getting some red flags for the longs here. There's potentially still could be some nice buy opportunities. But in terms of looking for that full swing all the way back to the swing high up there, might not be the best bet when we are starting to get some red flags coming into the market. So with EURUSD, I'm looking at a deeper retracement. Initially, I was looking for the retest of the high here. I said after looking at how prices rejected that zone, I don't think I'll be wanting to be too aggressive with my longs. I want to be a lot more conservative, waiting for a much deeper retracement. So I know prices a lot further away from that zone, and naturally that would mean waiting for a pullback into this area, which is around 1.084500, we'll call it. So yeah, looking for a much bigger retracement. I want price to be corrective as well. I don't want to see price suddenly shoot to the downside aggressively. Again, that's more of a characteristic of a reversal. If we're a bit slower, corrective, then that gives me a bit more confidence that we could see a nice buy, even if the bigger move is still to the downside. But yeah, for euro dollar, just waiting for a big correction. Nice bearish zone here. Perhaps there could be some lower time frame shorts there as well. And looking to take advantage of price falling over. Perhaps if we can get back into resistance again, test that high 1.04, that might be a nice place for a short. Being very consistent with these low highs, 1, 2, 3, maybe the fourth one is already printed, but we might come back and retest it. That could be a nice trade potentially this afternoon. And that could be a really nice short there to take, taking advantage of that zone we were reacting with whilst the market retraces. But in terms of the buy opportunities, the bullish opportunities, kind of waiting for us to get back to that kind of territory. Pound USD, I'm actually looking to sell, to be honest, because of the rejection was so strong last week. We've actually gapped to the downside, but we've still taken out these lows here as well. So what I'm looking at here for Pound USD is a very strong impulse, followed by an even stronger impulse in the opposite direction, which, again, as we talk about a lot on the streams, when we do see this type of price action, the impulse one way for an impulse back the other way, tends to be a sign of reversal, and it does play out pretty well too. So I'm expecting to see a bit of a correction for Pound USD at some point, and the market to continue to sell off. So the plan for Pound USD is looking for that correction and then the short. Of course, this would be my preferred area to get involved with, that prior resistance. If we could pull back into that level, that would be fantastic, which is just above 1.3. And that kind of gives us a big head and shoulder pattern as well. So you got your left, you got your head, you got your right there. And of course, that would be your neckline. And then you're expecting price to form the right shoulder and continue. But again, based on Pound USD, based on what we're doing on the higher time frames, you can see the daily close last week for Friday was exceptionally bearish. We had a very strong push on Thursday, big wick to the upside, price didn't sustain momentum, then we came straight back down and closed bearish. And of course, that gave us a pretty bearish weekly candle too. Well, not so bearish in terms of the body's actually closer to a doji, to be honest. It's a very small close. Just closed slightly bearish, but the biggest takeaway is that we've already got a pool of wicks here to the upside, so price is clearly struggling to hold resistance here. And then last week's candle tried to continue momentum, but completely failed, pull back and close bearish. So I think there's a higher chance that we do see price push down than push up. And that's pretty much all trading is. What's the probability of price going in this direction versus that direction? Of course, you got to plot your entries and your stop losses, and that's where it gets a bit more complicated. But in terms of just having a bias for Pound USD here, I would definitely favor a move to the downside rather than push to the upside. Of course, anything can happen, but just in terms of probability, we've already had a few attempts to try and go higher. So likely Pound USD is going to fall. And in terms of where, there's some levels here on the left, 1.28. I'm more so looking at this area. We had that brief pause, big strong break to the upside, so possibly a retest of 1.27 could make a lot of sense there. That'd be a really nice swing trade, but again, I'm not too sure if I'll hold the trade that long. But yeah, Pound USD pullbacks look good, and that's kind of the setup I'm looking to see if I can get involved with. Pound USD is definitely on my watch list. Dollar CAD has been interesting. We've seen a very aggressive retracement, a very aggressive wick to the downside as well. So I'm not so enthusiastic about the sales as I once was with dollar CAD. I still think there's a good chance we get back to this level, but we did leave a pretty big wick last week's candle through the low here, and we pull back up pretty aggressively as well. Looking at the daily chart, we do have a big level of resistance just above us. So as we can see, if we look to the left, really nice support once, twice, a third time. Even it was acting support over there, but just primarily focusing on that price action. Price, of course, broke through, and now I said if we could get a successful retest, there could be some really nice shorts here on the way back down. There's only one thing I don't like about this position, which again is how we retraced. We had a really strong drop, consolidation, and a pretty strong recovery now. Again, these impulse patterns are not perfect. Sometimes we do see them and they do fail. Of course, every pattern, it's not going to work every time. Every pattern is going to have moments when they fail. And this could be one of them. But I want to see some really strong rejection here for that to convince me to take the trade. Otherwise, I'll let dollar CAD do its thing and leave it be. If it does reject it, it does reject it. If it does break to the upside, it does break to the upside. But based on the fact that we left a big wick to the downside in the weekly chart, and we're seeing pretty aggressive retracement, I want to see some really strong wicks, bearish engulfing candles before I even do consider taking a short here. and getting involved, and of course probably targets back at the low. So to me, dollar CAD does look pretty good. It's a nice level. We're back at that level. If we can reject it well, it could be a nice short. But just based on how we're moving, there's some red flags that I have to watch out for. So I'm going to be a bit picky about this position. But it's in a nice place. So I'm keeping an eye on it. It is on my watch list. So it is a pair I'm looking at. But there's a bit of caution involved there with dollar CAD, especially seeing what's going on with the USD at the moment as well. In terms of Aussie dollar, so Aussie dollar, massive move to the downside last week. Yeah, a huge move for Aussie dollar, to be honest. We've taken out some major lows. We do have COVID lows on the left here, which I wonder is price maybe headed towards. Could be, not too far away, 0.57. Of course, this was back in 2020. We could see price push towards that area, but I think the biggest takeaway right now for Aussie dollar is that we're taking out some major lows. There's not a lot of support to look at least on the daily or the weekly chart. I might have to go quite far back to find support there, unless you're looking at the 2020 lows down there. So we're kind of in a bit of free fall right now. I do expect the market to retrace. We've kind of broken out the consolidation. The market is still quite stretched, so naturally, I do think a pullback is naturally going to occur, but yeah, taking buys are always a little bit risky, especially in this climate here, because you don't know how much, how down the market will go before it does recover. It's pretty much guaranteed we will see that recovery. We always do, but we could still do another 200 pips before price does pull back. So taking buys is always a little bit aggressive in this climate where all the markets are kind of falling simultaneously. So yeah, a bit cautious there with the buys there with Aussie dollar, but I do expect retracement. In terms of the sells, then of course you're just waiting for a much bigger retracement. I was pointing out this area here, 0.65. That would be a nice level to short from. Of course, we're very far away, but that's kind of the only area which I would consider some shorts, especially in this current, in the way the market is moving, the fact that we've taken out some major lows as well. So yeah, at the moment, still looking pretty bearish for Aussie dollar. Expect some retracement, but I need to see some strong rejection before I would kind of look to bank on that. As the USD, similar situation, strong moves to the downside. Hasn't taken up the lows yet, but probably is going to. Again, with this one, we've got some major support on our left. Price might want to go and take out the wick low here. So that was the wick low from COVID as well, I believe. Yes, it was. We probably are going to see price go and take that out. You can see in the weekly chart, very strong close as well. Lovely wicks to the upside. So resistance held very well. And now we've got that momentum. So I do think there's a good chance that this wick does go, even though we're very close to doing it. And probably see the wick down there go as well. So more downside likely for USD before we do recover. Again, in terms of shorting the market, potentially something like... let me just delete this level. Something like this could look good. A retest of that area might be a nice trade in the lower time frame. So I would keep an eye on that in case the USD would be kind enough to retrace. But yeah, it's looking very bearish right now. And I've got a feeling we might just kind of just dump there to the downside. In terms of gold, gold started off the week pretty bearish. A bit more downside with this one. I did say I think a bit more retracement is coming into play now for gold. I talked about a retest of this area, which I think price is still... Oh, what happened there? Kind of just jumped. I was talking about this area, which I think price has still got a pretty good chance to come back and retest. Yeah, I talked about potentially a short a little bit higher up. We start off the week pretty bearish, even though we did recover that. I was talking about retest this area. I think that retest still looks pretty good, actually, because now that we've had that move down, probably maybe drawn some sellers in already. So we now might push to the upside to go and take them out of their positions before we do continue. So I actually still like that zone quite a lot. A lot of momentum came from that. Now we've got that potential incentive to head higher before we head lower. So gold, I would still be pretty bearish on. Really strong moves to the downside, taking out some key lows here on the left. It doesn't look like it's slowing down anytime soon right now. So I think that still looks like a nice short. And yeah, could be seeing a new swing low and perhaps a retest of that prior high there as well, which might be a nice place for a long. So I'm going to keep an eye out for that for gold, but also being a bit careful as well because momentum looks like it's shifting. That was a pretty strong close on Friday. It's been a while since we've seen a strong close. Probably have to go back to candlesticks here back in November. But yeah, a bit more downside for gold looks likely. And then silver, wow, silver very closed very bearish on the week last week. You can see pretty much engulfed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 weeks of price action that took us to get back to resistance. We engulfed that in 1 week. So price was exceptionally volatile last week and closed very bearish. We are, of course, coming back into support, so naturally there might be a bit of a bounce here for silver. Again, with this one, I'll probably still be pretty bearish. We've cracked through some major resistance on the daily chart, going back to 32.5-ish, 32.3. So I wouldn't be surprised if that does insinuate more downside. I think this would have been a nice place to short from, but I think we already tapped into it. Yeah, just about by the wick, and I suppose that's already given us a bit of a reaction. Very aggressive push though. I'm not really a fan of the price action. Just so volatile. Big push down, big push up. Yeah, I want price to give me an impulsive move, but give me also corrective moves as well, so I know which way momentum is flowing. If momentum is in both ways, that's when things get a bit ugly. But yeah, silver, nice reaction to support. Naturally, there could still be some more buys here because the market is pretty oversold. So naturally, the market might still push down, find some support before clawing back up. But again, watch out because that would be still a bit more of an aggressive trade. But hey, if we start seeing some wicks development, it could end up being a nice position.